Welcome back to Laser Technologies. So in the last class we have discussed about the semiconductor lasers. So we have the homojunction semiconductor lasers and heterojunction semiconductor lasers. So using different materials or semiconducting materials, you form the heterojunctions. So is one heterojunction or multiple heterojunctions that creates a band gap engineering, so that you have lasing action from your conduction band to your valence band. So you create a population inversion at the junction. So your lasing will be decided by the band gap of this device. So the band gap decides the what is the wavelength is coming out of this semiconductor lasers. So these semiconductor lasers have wide range of wavelengths. So the different material combinations, where we always care about the lattice matching to grow a highly crystalline heterostructures. Okay, so these different materials combinations with a good lattice matching, so you can get full visible wavelength region to up to almost IR, near IR and mid IR regions. So these PBSC or PBSNTE, so these almost covers to mid IR wavelength range. And so if the semiconductor materials, you use a three-dimensional material or a quantum wells or quantum wires or quantum dots, you can also create lasers with the specific energy bands, as we have seen in this density of states diagram. So with the semiconductor lasers, which covers not only bulk materials, also it covers quantum wells, quantum dots and quantum wires. So we have those kind of lasers can be possible or also available with the semiconductor lasers class. And also we have seen this paper. In this paper they have shown at the green wavelengths. So previously the green wavelength is very much difficult because of the different growth mechanisms. They have used multiple quantum wells in the structure, so they are able to get the green lasing. So these are the heterojunction lasers. So in this case you have different gallium nitrides. So okay, so in this case indium gallium nitride is used, so that means it's mostly like a different combination of your quantum wells. Okay, that we are going to see in the lasing action. That is, you can have tunability of the wavelength from 514 to 516. So though it's a small tunability, but you have a sharp spikes, that means your width will be much narrower. So that is the advantage of this semiconductor lasers. Though you will get low powers, but your spectral lines of having a very smaller width, that will be useful for the your high resolution spectroscopy. So with that we are going to move other type of semiconductor lasers. So these are all like quantum cascade lasers. So quantum cascade lasers, it's also a semiconductor laser, but these are not like a conventional semiconductors. Okay, these are different from the conventional semiconductors. Now this is actually how it works. You have designed your conduction band energy levels such a way that you inject the electrons. So these electrons will tunnel through with the tunneling phenomena. So then you have a band gaps is created in the conduction band. These are all like sub bands. So you have transition within the sub bands. That means in the conduction band you have sub bands. Within the sub bands you have transitions. Okay. So then again you repeat this kind of a structure for certain periods. So then what happens? You have a spontaneous emission in this case. So now this after spontaneous emission, what happens? Your photon is propagating through your material, as well as your electron will not recombine like a conventional material. Your electron will be again tunnel through to the next period. Again, as this moving in the bias condition, it acquires energy again it goes to higher state in the active medium, then again lasing action takes place. Now in this case what happens, you already have a spontaneous emission in the first period that will be triggering the electron in the excited state, so that gives you again a stimulated emission. So this kind of a process you repeat for couple of times. That means this is generally this is one period. You repeat this kind of structures for almost close to 100 to 120 periods, then you have your electron makes you spontaneous stimulated emissions. So you have many number of electrons goes through stimulated emission, you have a good lasing action takes place within these structures. Okay, so these kind of lasers are called quantum cascade lasers. So the electron is cascading through your structures. So these are actually the design structures of your semiconducting material. So now whatever I am showing here, this is all a conduction band energy levels. You are engineering your bands. So now if you see how you can engineer the bands, so we know that from quantum mechanics. So you know the quantum well, a particle in a quantum box. So a particle in a quantum box, what is its energy? It's depending upon h cos square k square by 2m. So that is the particle in a box. Okay, so that is in the quantum picture. That means the particle sizes are in the quantum picture, that you can also call as a quantum well. So now I can write your k square is nothing but 2 pi by L whole square by 2m. That means you have h square. So this is not 2 pi, it's n pi, depending on the number of energy levels, n square pi square by 2m L square. So that is your energy of the particle in a quantum well, or a particle in a box in the quantum picture. Now your energy is proportional to 1 over length square. So what is your length? This is length of your well, your quantum well. Now what happens, you decrease the length, your energy will be increased. Now in the quantum picture, what you are doing, you are actually discretizing the energy levels. Okay, now what you create here, you design your quantum wells with the different widths, you will create different energy levels. Okay, so your energy bands can be created. That means you are engineering the band gap of the material. You making a structure so that you are designing how your conduction band looks like, how you want, you are designing it. So these kind of structures are called engineered band gap materials. Okay, so now what I am showing here is only about the conduction band energy levels. So now when you are applying the bias, the electron is tunneling through such a way that you create an active region where you have energy levels, which is the high energy levels, and lower energies you have transitions, because electron moving through a potential, it gains energy. So once it reaches the energy, you have a transition from level 3 to level 2. So now 2 to 1, you again, it's a lower state, so electron will go to lower state without emitting a photon. So now it releases as a non-radiative decay. So now the electron in the level 1. So now effectively it's a 3-level laser system. So effectively it's a 3-level laser system. So now this electron again tunnel through, because again still it in the potential barrier, like the potential is created because of your bias. So now again the electron is tunneled through, so it acquires energy, again it gains energy, then next period it will be having enough energy to reach the excited state of this state. So now the photon emitted from this active region, it moved through your material and stimulated this electron, so that you will get a stimulated emission. So now this kind of many number of electrons will participate in the stimulated process. So you will get large number of photons, stimulated photons, that is over. Once you cross your threshold, so then you have a lasing action. Okay, to make this kind of a repetition, you should have at least 100 to 120 periods. So now if you see the device, so this is a device on the left hand side. So now this device is engineered in this like this. So now if you see one period is 60 nanometers including your active region. So now this is your active region. So these are the injectors. So that means electrons passes through this conduction band energy sub bands. It gains the energy, then it reaches to maximum state. Then you have a lasing action. Okay, so these are all sub bands in the conduction band. So now these kind of transitions are called sub-band transitions. So in the sub-band transitions, it can be possible you have intra-sub-band or inter-sub-band. So in this case, now if you see your lasing is taking place in intra, that means in the same one active region. If you see here, you have a lasing action. For example, there is a possibility that you can make an active region like such a way that you can call one band to other band, that inter sub band. So, okay, so intra sub band means within the same sub band. Inter sub band means it have a transitions from one sub band to other sub band. So this kind of a cascade lasers can be designed. So this is completely artificial design. So it's a human made design. So now you take advantage of quantum mechanics. You create your conduction band energy levels such a way that you use the electron multiple times. Like a semiconductor device, what happens? You have pumped the electron to excited state. When you have stimulated emission, this is a conduction band and this is your valency band. Now your electron will be combined with the hole. So that means the electron hole recombination is happening in your typical semiconducting lasers or conventional semiconductor lasers. Now your electron always stay in valency band, but in this case, in a quantum cascade lasers, your electron always in the conduction band, so it will tunnel through to the next active regions. So that means you are utilizing electron multiple times, not like this. Here one electron you utilize, that will be within the valency band. Okay, so now in this case, this electron is reused, again it gains the energy and again it reaches the active region of the next period and again lasing action takes place. So that means your electron multiple times it's re-excited and then giving a lasing action. So now if you see here, so this is your active region where the lasing takes place. So now you are injecting the electrons using your bias. It gains the energy. It reaches the one of the higher energy, because this is a quantum well. You know the quantum well energies are distributed. For example, this is your first energy, then the second energy, third energy. So your energy levels are discretized. It will reach to higher excited state. Then it have a transition to lower excited state with the lasing action, and then with the non-radiated decay it goes to even lower state. Then this electron again tunnels through these barriers, or you have these structures, and again acquires the energy and again go to the next period, that is has enough energy to having a lasing action. So this kind of now you see the length of the one period is 60 nanometers including active region. So now this is one kind of a device. You repeat this structure 100 to 100, almost 100 times. Now you multiply 100 times. What happens? 60 nanometers into 100. So that means 6000 nanometers. That is nothing but 6 micron. So now your device, your laser is like a 60 micron device. Now you see how tiny these lasers are. Though you have many complexities, but still you can have very small size devices. So the total device is over 60 microns. Okay, this is your heterostructure. So now you add the electrodes in this, it can go up to maximum millimeter scales. Okay, so these are the tiny devices. So The main advantage of these devices is the typical semiconductors will stop lasing. It can give up to mid-IR. So after mid-IR, your energy gaps very small. Okay, if you calculate your wavelength into your energy scale, your energy gap is much smaller. It is very difficult to achieve like such a devices. Like now we have to find out the very low band gap materials. So this quantum cascade laser took the advantage of you design your band gap. So these are sub-band band gaps. So these are covers from mid-IR to far IR. Also it covers terahertz wavelengths. So these quantum cascade lasers are famous for mid-IR to terahertz wavelength ranges. So because of this band gap engineering, with the low gap you can create. See, from mid-IR to terahertz, your energy gaps are very, like you go to terahertz, you have like milli electron volts. So milli electron volts, you have very short energy gaps. To getting those kind of materials, it's highly difficult. Okay, and not only highly difficult, the problem is at room temperature you have terahertz radiation. So that means at room temperature itself you have electrons into your conduction band or your excited states that can be created as your ground state. So now you cannot make a lasing action out of it. So there are a lot of difficulties though you find the materials with a low gap. Okay, so these are engineered materials. We can no need to worry about the energy gap. So you can create your structures with the band gap engineering. Whatever the energy you want of the photon, you can get the energy of the photon by designing your repeated structures. Okay, so these are band gap engineering devices. Now as I shown you, so this is like a typical 3-level system. Now you have injected electrons into your higher state. So now you have transition to the E2 state. You have a lasing action, and now this electron will be go to ground state or even state. Then this electron again tunnel through your potential barriers with a supplied bias condition. Then again it acquires energy. Again it reaches to conduction band in the next period. Conduction band, these are all conduction bands in the higher energy of the conduction band. Okay, so that way you can create lasing action in the band gap engineered devices, and this was first realized in the year 1994. So it's almost like 25 years of the invention of quantum cascade lasers. Okay, so now if you see your optical power, as I mentioned, these are very tiny devices, your power will be lower. So like you will get a few milliwatts of the power. Okay, so but you assume with the micrometer size device, it's giving a milliwatt power. So it has different applications. These kind of a device can be used for different applications. So now if you see here, as your bias current is changing, your optical power is increased abruptly. So now at lower bias conditions, this scale you can see it's 1000 times. So this values, whatever is the graph is multiplied with 1000 times to show the visibility. Now you have an abrupt change at certain voltage. That is your lasing action started. Wherever you see abrupt increase of the power, that is a sign of the lasing action. And in this inset of the figure, it's wave number versus optical power. Now if you see, these are very narrow bandwidths. So like for example, now with the full width of maximum of your one of the spectral line is 0.3 centimeter inverse. So they have very few line widths. So as we know that the line widths mainly coming from your natural line widths, that is always will be there. If there is any reflections and losses will be there in your structure, that will add up your line width, but still you are able to see very narrow line widths using this quantum cascade lasers. Different quantum cascade lasers which are available now. So now you see on x-axis it's a wavelength in micrometers, on y-axis, so this is operating temperature. Now as we know, these generally works in the low temperature conditions. Now you see the optimal regions in the low temperature conditions, though some of the quantum cascade lasers works in the room temperature conditions, that is limited to up to 30 microns. We don't have any other lasers in the quantum lasers in the higher wavelength region, that means like far higher as well as in the terahertz region. So this you can see the terahertz is 1 to 10 terahertz. This is the 1 to 10 terahertz region. So in the terahertz region we don't have the quantum cascade lasers at the room temperature conditions. These are all below the room temperature conditions. So that means you have to maintain the temperatures. We know that to go to lower temperatures, the device cost will be expensive, as well as these quantum cascade lasers precisely depending upon the nanometer layer depositions. So that means you have to make a very like sharp and clear nanometer depositions. That is also challenging. So there is a lot of complexity. So there is a lot of clean room facilities to be utilized. So this is much more expensive, the engineering this kind of devices. But still, depending on the applications what we want, we can always have a compromise. So right now we are lacking of good terahertz lasers or sources which can be utilized for the next generation devices for communications, because terahertz is like high speed devices can be made using a terahertz waves. Right now with the electronics we are reaching the speed limit. So we almost like now we have to time to move to exceed the speed limits. So that means we require good sources in the terahertz region, because terahertz is kind of a band which within the band within your electronics and photonics. Photonics is your light and electronics is your electron devices mainly, right? So now your limitation of the electronics can be overcome with the photonics. The problem is right now we don't have our terahertz proper and very good terahertz devices. So for example, now you see we have terahertz lasers, but they are still operating conditions at the low temperature regions. Okay, then there are more challenges. And similarly there are other techniques to generate the terahertz waves using a femtosecond lasers. So those are also expensive. So now we are lacking the devices. Like for example, you have semiconductor devices, you can get by like 50 rupees you will get a laser diode. See, but these kind of lasers you cannot get such a cheap. So these lasers will be very expensive. Like maybe you have to pay for even microwatt lasers, you need to pay around few lakhs or more than to get one device. So these are still under the process of technology. So over the time maybe we exceed to get the high temperature lasers, and also still that research is going on to develop a terahertz devices or terahertz sources. Maybe in the later years we will be succeeded, and let's see. So right now, so these are the cascade lasers are available with the range of 2 microns to 300 microns, and these are the operating temperature conditions, and these are the devices. How you see the active region is designed such a way that you have proper energy bands will match to having a lasing action. So these are injector electrons, that means you are injecting the electrons, so it gains the energy to reach the higher excited state in the active region. So this you repeat several times to having a structure. So you have a substrate, then you have a active region. Okay, so then you have lasing coming from this one of the sides. Okay, so that way you create a population inversion between level 3 to level 2. So your level 2 always empty because level 2 to level 1 it's a instantaneous process. It's not ready to decay, it instantly go, so it always your level 2 will be empty, so that you always create a population inversion in the 3 to 2. So this is a cascading of electrons from one quantum well to other quantum well. That is why you call the quantum cascade. You are seeing the lasing because you have a laser. So this is your quantum cascade laser principles. So now if you compare the typical quantum cascade lasers and conventional semiconductor lasers, so we see the semiconductor lasers you can make either homojunctions or heterojunctions. There also we have engineered the band gaps. You see these are the conduction bands. You engineered how your conduction band to have a population inversion. For example, now you pump, your electrons will go higher state, then they will accumulate in the lower state on the conduction band. So you will create a population inversion at the junction. So it decides always you have a gap, that gap is giving a photon. So that means in the typical semiconductors, the gap decides the wavelength of the light. So in this quantum cascade lasers, your structure will decide the wavelength. So now you want whatever the wavelength, you design according to the structure. It's not here in this case you want a different wavelength, you have to find out the different material. So here is the same material, you change the width of the quantum wells, you will get whatever your desired wavelength you want. Okay, so that is the main point here. The band gap decides the wavelength of the laser in your conventional semiconductors. So you have to choose a different material for different wavelengths. So the quantum cascade lasers mainly rely on the one type of carriers. So that is our electrons, because here I am showing the both conduction band as well as valency band. Here we are mainly interested in the conduction band levels because the transitions are subband transitions within the conduction band levels. Okay, so now these electrons are mainly participated in your lasing action. That's why we call these are unipolar lasers. So once electron is emitted in the laser photon by upper to lower energy level, the transition in your conventional semiconductors, so always the electron is remain in the valency band. But in this case, it is always, you see, you always tunnels through, it always acquires energy as it's traveling through your device, because you are giving a bias condition, you are creating always a potential difference from one end to other end. So electron always moves, so it acquires energy as it propagating through a distance, then it reaches your required excited states, so then you have a lasing action. So that means you have there are different active regions where your lasing action condition. Now in this case, now if you see, you have lasing is taking place in these three bands. So now in this case, you have active region of this one. Okay, so you repeat the structures. Now this is your one period. So you repeat these periods. This is one period. So you repeat these periods roughly 100 to achieve your lasing condition. But still, as you see, these are in the nanometer scales. So ultimately your device will be in the micron scales.